2024, an important diplomatic meeting took place in Beijing, where Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval engaged with Chinese Foreign Minister and member of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China, Wang. Now, this meeting was the 23rd round of special representative talks and was an important one as it addressed the long-standing border disputes between India and China, especially in light of recent agreements aimed at de-escalating tensions along the shared border. Now, the central question arising from this meeting is it time to trust the dragon? Now, the meeting between Doval and Wang follows high-level engagements between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping on the margins of the BRICS summit in Kazan in Russia. Now, Doval and Wang held discussions surrounding the recent agreements reached between India and China regarding their border management. The agenda of the SR's meet was to oversee the management of peace and tranquility in border areas and to explore a fair, reasonable and mutually acceptable solution to the boundary question. Now, this was the first meeting of the SRs since frictions had emerged in the western sector of the India-China border areas in 2020. Both sides also decided to use, coordinate and guide the relevant diplomatic and military mechanisms to ensure border management. Doval and Wang exchanged views on bilateral, regional and global issues of mutual interest. Both sides also showed positive signs to strengthen cross-border cooperation and exchanges, including resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, which has been suspended since 2020 due to COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent non-renewal of Yatra arrangements by the Chinese side. Now, Doval and Wang also provided positive directions for data sharing on trans-border rivers and border trade. NSA Doval also called on Chinese Vice President Han Zheng and invited Wang to visit India at a mutually convenient date to hold the next round of SR meeting. The relationship between India and China has been fraught with complexities by the periods of cooperation and conflict. The two nations share a disputed border that has been a source of tension since the Sino-India War in 1962. In recent years, especially following the military standoff that began in 2020, relations have deteriorated sharply. The Galwan Valley clash in June 2020, which resulted in casualties on both sides, marked a critical low point in bilateral ties. Since then, both nations have engaged in various military and diplomatic maneuvers to address these tensions. On October 21, 2024, both countries finalized an agreement that allows for the resumption of patrolling activities along parts of their disputed border, especially in regions like Depsang and Demchok of eastern Ladakh. So, what are the key elements of the agreement which took place between India and China? First is resumption of patrolling. So the agreement restores pre-2020 patrolling protocols, allowing Indian and Chinese troops to resume their patrols in these contested areas. This is significant as patrols had been curtailed following the escalation of tensions in 2020. Second is troop withdrawal. As part of this disengagement agreement, both sides have committed to withdrawing troops from critical friction points along the LAC, line of actual control. Now, this includes dismantling temporary military infrastructure that had been established during the standoff. Third is monitoring mechanisms. The agreement also includes provisions for closely monitoring patrols to prevent direct confrontations between troops. The aim of monitoring is to reduce the likelihood of incidents similar to those witnessed during previous clashes. And the last is a long-term framework. While this agreement marks a positive step towards de-escalation, it does not resolve the underlying territorial disputes that have historically plagued India-China relations. Both nations continue to recognize that comprehensive solution will require ongoing dialogue and negotiation through established bilateral mechanisms. Now, the meeting between Doval and Wang is significant for several reasons. The first is structured engagement since 2020. This meeting represents the first structured engagement at SR level since tensions escalated in 2020. It reflects a mutual recognition that dialogue is essential for resolving disputes and rebuilding trust. We all know that stable India-China relations are crucial for regional peace and security. As two major powers in Asia, their ability to manage disputes effectively can have far-reaching implications for South Asia and beyond. But despite these positive developments, there is considerable skepticism within India regarding China's long-term intentions, particularly given past incidents where agreements were not honored by China. Approximately 100,000 troops remain deployed on both sides of the border, indicating that while dialogue is underway, military readiness continues to be a priority for both the nations. In India, national security concerns are paramount. While the recent agreements are encouraging steps towards de-escalation, they do not fully address the deep-seated mistrust that characterizes India-China relations. Both countries also continue to expand their military infrastructure along the sea, and so China must demonstrate its commitment to honoring the recent agreements with India regarding border management to rebuild trust and stability in their relationship. It is essential for China to prove its reliability in implementing these agreements effectively. And so the question which was, if Doval-Wang meeting will be able to translate dialogue into lasting peace? Well, the answer is yes, but only through China's consistent adherence to these commitments.